When I did this series on creating an animated PowerPoint type presentation in Pinnacle Studio, I talked about using a background for an entire presentation. So what I've done is I've worked out a shortcut here that will streamline that process. When I did this series on creating an animated PowerPoint type presentation in Pinnacle Studio, I talked about using a background for an entire presentation. Now, normally my videos have a set static background, and then in that series, I demonstrated how, if I wanted to change the background, how I did that. And I locked the tracks and then could split them. So what I've done is I've worked out a shortcut here that will streamline that process. So there were two ways that I went about doing that. The first was to put in a single blank title, apply my static background, and then stretch that over the entire length of the timeline. What I've done with this presentation is the other method that I use, and that is that I put in a title, put in my static background, and I have now stretched that and copied it to each one of the sections. Both of those methods work very well. Now, down the road, if I want to change this background, what I did before was I would lock all the tracks. I would then slice this wherever I needed to, and then I would make whatever changes that I wanted to make. Let's say I wanted to add my blackboard or whatever. I had different illustrations that I used. This blackboard here is one of them. I would put that in, and I could do a list on that. Looking forward into the presentation, what I figured was what I can do that will streamline that process a little bit more is, since I have these other tracks here, I'm going to go ahead and lock the section track. I don't have to worry about the title track right now because there's nothing there. Graphics 1, there's nothing there really. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the right caret to go to the next marker, and I have all my markers laid out for the entire timeline. And the markers right now are set at mostly the beginning of each paragraph. There are a few spots where I knew I was going to be wanting to break that later on, so I put a marker there. All right, so I've got my markers here. So all I have to do to separate these and make individual titles is I've got everything copied, got everything sized. So now all I have to do is hit the razor blade and go to the next marker and razor blade, marker, razor blade, marker, razor blade, razor blade. And I'm going to do this throughout the entire timeline. So what happens is I've got a consistent background throughout the entire presentation. And then if I want to change any one of these backgrounds, I can come in here, I can go to background settings, I can trash that, and I can bring in, let's say I want to use my blackboard, I can bring that in. And now I've switched out that background very, very quickly. I don't have to stop to cut anything or resize anything. So that was a way that I found to actually do this. And I'm going to go through the entire timeline here and make these cuts. And the fact that I already have these markers in really helps quite a bit with this process. So I can go through the entire timeline very rapidly doing this. So I have my single background and I have the ability to change any of these out. All right. So now I've done my entire timeline. I have individual backgrounds with the consistent look to them. And now if I want to go in and I want to change the backgrounds and any of those, I can do that. And the other thing is, let's say I have a group of titles here and I want to extend one background over several, then all I have to do is I work on each of the titles above here is I can just delete this and pull it over. I don't usually delete more than one at a time, just simply because of the fact that if I do that, this line has a tendency to kind of collapse and move in on it. So that's a little shortcut on doing these backgrounds. It's saving a lot of time and it makes for a very consistent look to the entire presentation. Alrighty, so that is it for today, I think. Yeah, here.